On this beautiful October morning, it is good to be together. We are starting to get crowded on Sunday mornings, and so if you have some space next to you and can, scoot toward the middle. That'll help folks who come in a little late, as we all have done at one time or another, to find a welcome space to be with us today. Well, our hope, as always, is that this gathering will uplift our hearts, will heal our spirits, and will challenge us to put our values into action, leading not just to transformed people, but a transformed society. Come, let us worship together. As Dave comes to light our chalice, we'll read in unison. We kindle this flame,
Got to get the glasses out. Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Judah, your worship associate this morning, and I'm so glad that you have joined us here at Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are an active, loving family, and everyone is welcome. Whoever you are, however you define yourself, whoever you choose to love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. It is one of our great joys to have visitors each Sunday. With those of you who are here for the first or maybe the second time, please find the courage to stand so that we can welcome you more fully. Thank you. Thank you so much, and again, welcome. After the service, please join us for coffee and treats in the back, and join the Welcome Circle, located off to your left, where you can learn more about VUU and Unitarian Universalism. Should you need the services of our baby comfort room, it's located to your right, room 2. There are speakers inside the room, so you won't miss any part of today's service. Also, for anyone needing a listening ear this morning, Frances Campos Outcalt is our pastoral care associate right over there, and she'll be in the front of the sanctuary to your right after the service. This morning, Reverend Andy will continue with this month's sermon theme of democracy. Some of you might be familiar with the TV show The West Wing, Aaron Sorkin's creation that first aired in 1999 and featured Martin Sheen as the fictitious President Jed Bartlet. The West Wing helped me get through the Bush 2 years. Because for 1 hour every week, I could pretend that our country was in the good hands of President Bartlet and his staff at the helm. I have many favorite scenes and quotes from The West Wing, but perhaps my absolute favorite is when the president is asked a question at a town hall meeting about how to get the younger voters to turn up to the polls. He replies, "Decisions are made by those who show up." For me, that's the essence of a democracy. You get a say in what's at stake if you choose to be involved in the process. I've shared with you previously that I grew up in an extremely Catholic household. There were no choices when it came to religion. We went to church and CCD, the Catholic version of religious ed classes, every Sunday. It was not a democracy. You made your first communion in 2nd grade, confessed your sins in 4th grade. Looking back now, seriously, what off-the-chart sins does a 4th grader need to repent for? And you were confirmed in 8th grade. We were told and taught to embrace the sacraments and not to question them. But I had lots of questions and many issues with Catholicism, which I couldn't resolve. And that eventually led to the period in our lives that my wife and I refer to as our church search. We wanted a voice in terms of finding a new spiritual home, and we were willing to actively vet the other candidate, so to speak. Did you know there's actually a liberal Catholic church? We found one in Illinois, only it wasn't really liberal, and most of the Mass was said in Latin. We also accompanied our friends to a Southern Pentecostal service in Asheville, North Carolina. And that consisted of 45 minutes of group karaoke, followed by another 45 minutes of the preacher telling me over and over and over again that I had a shepherd and he was the Lord Jesus Christ. We were even introduced to the preacher after the service, and he made sure that because we were visitors, we were given a very nice VHS video about Jesus. To our visitors today, don't worry, there are no Jesus videos for you after the service. I was also later told that we were lucky because at some of the smaller Pentecostal churches in the mountains of North Carolina, they bring out snakes and they use them as part of the service. Had that happened, I would have exercised my right to leave right then and there and walk back to our friend's apartment. Thankfully, a few years later, our church search concluded when Teresa and I discovered Unitarian Universalism and the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale in Illinois. I remember leaving that service with both of us saying to each other, we finally found our home. And when we moved to Phoenix a little over 4 years ago, we found VUU before we'd even finalized the purchase of our new house. Now, obviously, many others do get their spiritual needs met by attending Catholic and Pentecostal services, and in no way is the UU faith anti either of those religions. But for Teresa and I, becoming UUs was religious democracy in action. We were unhappy with our incumbent upbringing, and we set out to find a new candidate who had views similar to ours. Author E.B. White wrote, "Democracy is itself a religious faith. For some, it comes close to being the only formal religion they have." Now, for whatever reason, we have all made the decision this morning to show up and be part of the process. President Bartlett, if he were a real person, and boy, could we use him right about now, he would definitely be proud. Once again, welcome, and let's worship together.
Please rise and body your spirit. We are singing again. We are building a new way. Our every need, yes, we can. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom. Peace and freedom. Cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
If you've been here a while, you know that for the past several months I've been announcing, in a way, I guess, in the prayer, the number of Americans killed by gun violence in the week past and how many Americans have been killed by gun violence up to this point in 2019. The numbers that I've been using in my prayer exclude suicides with guns. So this past week we crossed 12,000 Americans killed by gun violence this year, and according to the National Gun Violence Archive, there have also been 19,000 gun suicides so far this year. One of the groups that's working to reverse this epidemic in the United States is the youth-led March for Our Lives movement. A couple weeks ago, we received an offering, thanks to your generosity, of more than $1,000 to benefit their work. And this morning, community leader Audrey Coleman is here to talk to us about the work of March for Our Lives and to receive that check. Audrey, welcome. Good to have you. It's all you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Audrey Coleman. Thank you. I'm a senior at Gilbert Classical Academy and East Valley Region Lead for our chapter of March for Our Lives, Arizona. So every day, 100 people die by gun violence in America alone. March for Our Lives was founded after the Parkland shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School on February 14th, 2018. Since this movement has sparked, we've had so many marches, sit-ins, town halls, and we've registered many voters all across the country. And just in Arizona, we have over 7 chapters, 65 clubs in our schools, and we have members in every single congressional district in our state. As an organization, we recognize that youth are a catalyst for change, and March for Our Lives Arizona's mission is to educate, engage, and empower young people as the driving force in creating a safer communities free of gun violence. So this past year, we've implemented legislation at the Capitol to try to hold our lawmakers accountable in taking action over simply just thoughts and prayers. So student wrote House Bill 2597, which was introduced to the Arizona House of Representatives in January earlier this year. So this bill emphasizes precautionary over reactionary measures by having mental health counselors in our schools over an armed guard or an SRO, because we, the students, defined school safety as love and support.
Yeah.
As a co-author of this bill, we lobbied for it to demand our lawmakers take action and demand that youth have a seat at the table in making meaningful change to save lives. This bill passed in the Education Committee and the Committee of Public Safety. However, our bill did fail due to a Republican representative's actions to not support our bill and allow it to pass through the House. However, our efforts did result in a $20 million increase in funding for mental health counselors in the state budget for Arizona. So your support is a key role in this, as we're now able to draft better legislation for gun safety and saving students' lives. For example, passing universal background checks, ending the gun show loophole, demanding red flag laws be passed, and other forms of legislation. We can also educate youth to involve themselves in politics and activate their communities through town halls and opportunities to amplify marginalized narratives who are disproportionately affected by gun violence. We also understand that one way you can support is by doing voter registration. As an organization, we have registered 3,500 youth to vote. Thank you. So we're helping everyone understand to exercise their democracy, as I hear it's a theme. And so that's important. So thank you for your support in helping us continue to do this. I registered about 50 people at my school to vote last week.
That's awesome.
Thank you. And we also like to go out to First Friday in Phoenix to register voters. So those are some activities that we like to engage within our community. So I would like to conclude by thanking everyone, thanking the Reverend for allowing me to be here. Thank you all individually for committing to a safer Arizona so we can finally end the epidemic of gun violence in our communities. Enough is enough. Thank you. Thank you.
So don't tell me there's no hope. And make sure that if you're able, you support March for Our Lives in other ways too. Show up to their events, donate individually. They appreciate all the support, and we appreciate your leadership for March for Our Lives. Well, we're going to receive now our regular Sunday morning offering that goes to support the mission of this congregation to work toward more love, greater service, and a fuller sense of justice in our community. So as the ushers come forward, please, to receive this morning's offering, we do so, as always, with deep gratitude for all the many forms of your generosity, from giving of your talents to giving of your time in the community to your finances here. Deep gratitude to you for your faithfulness.
I would like to invite the children to come up for the children's offering and then to stay for our time for all ages, please. Sit right here. Good work in moving, everybody. So Haley and I thought that we would talk to you.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, we thought we'd talk. We're done. So I think that when the kids leave, the grown-ups are going to talk about everybody making their own decision about eating in a way that helps the earth. And so Haley and I were thinking about how do kids make that decision? And the first thing we thought about is the kind of snacks maybe you have at home. Anybody have snacks at their house? All right, your kids don't, Carl. Sign of good parenting. So does your snack come in one big container like Haley's holding like this? Can you guys see? Or does it come in little containers like this bag where everybody gets their own? These kids over here can't see it either.
Sorry, children.
Yeah. Well, but whatever the snack is, if it's carrots, are they single or are they in little packages? Which do you think is probably better for the earth? Is it better to have this one big container or for everybody to have all the little ones? But this is made out of plastic. Do you think that's okay? No. But what are these made out of? Plastic. So which choice do you think we should make? It's thinner plastic? What do you think? So there's right. Right. Yeah. And we can recycle this big plastic one. What's making noise? Oh, okay. And we can't recycle these bags either. All right, let's see what else we thought of.
Hi. So I'm sure we don't have to tell you which one is better, because you all know that which one's better?
This one?
No.
Is this edible?
But we're going to talk about single-use plastic. Do you guys know what that is? Yeah? I'm going to ask her. What is single-use plastic? You can only use it once, so maybe that's why using a reusable water bottle is much better than the plastic. So you got a thought. What's your thought? But you still have to throw it away, right?
Eventually.
No? You can hold on to it forever. Yeah, okay, well, I'm just gonna...
So then I was thinking about if you take your lunch when you go to school or if you go to a friend's house or a play date or anything like that, you could use a paper sack, but I think most people have a lunchbox, right? Does everybody have a lunchbox? Yeah? Okay. So good choice, done. No. Do you ever open your lunchbox and think about what's inside? What do you pack your sandwich in? And your carrots and your drink. Have you seen these? Reusable Ziploc bags that you wash and reuse? Do you take a plastic water bottle or something reusable to school with your lunch? No. Or the other, let's see what the other lunchbox has in it. Oh, a one-time use little Ziploc bags. Oh, what are these? Do you take these to school? You throw them away? Probably not a good choice, right?
Oh, okay. Okay, love this for me. Do you guys know what this is? It is a banana peel and an apple core. What do you guys typically do with this when you're done with them? What do you got, Augie? You throw it away? Do you guys know what compost is? Yeah? What is compost, Simon? But how do we throw them away? Do you know? Lincoln? Yeah. We do put them in a bin, and it ends up being dirt for plants. Do you guys know where our compost is? That away? Our compost is... It's a lot of directions. I think I can tell you where it is if you guys give me a second. It's by the playground. Did you guys know that? Yeah? Well, that's what compost is.
I know, right? Here, you got the blocks here, right? So the last thing we want to talk about is what you're eating. So there are some people, right, that eat a lot of meat. Some people who choose not to. But what we found is that doctors say that each person should eat a half a pound of meat a week. That's like 2 servings, at most a whole week. And we're going to symbolize that by showing this one block. This is my half a pound of apparently red meat that I eat a week. But if you're a meat eater, what do you think the average person, how much they eat in a week? Do you think they eat this much? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We can do this quietly. You don't think they eat this much. So let's add another block, Haley. Okay. So 2 times. Is this how much they eat, or do they not eat this much? Some yeses, some nos. It's not. This is not the average. How about this? Is this it? Or is not? This is not how much the average American eats on a weekly basis. This is going to take my balancing here. How about 4 times the recommended amount? Do you think that's it? No. Little Jenga of Marcy. How about this much? No. Let's try again. I'm so nervous. And no. Okay, we're at 6 times what the doctors say we should eat. Do you think that's how much the average person eats? No. Thank you, Simon. Yes. 7 times. Do you think we ought to think about that just to even keep us healthy? 7 times. That's every day the average person is eating a half a pound of meat. Do you think there are other ways that we could handle getting food for our bodies and for our earth? Yes. Thank you. Go ahead, yes.
We're going to sing these wonderful children out under a bridge of love. If you're comfortable, come close just like London bridges. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. One more time. Oh, we give thanks, oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for this precious day. Please be seated. Wow, it's great having those kids back. It was a little low, and last time I was here on fall break, and what wonderful hope for the future.
How do we move to centering from that, Kelly?
Like, wait a minute.
We just have to do it.
Let's take a couple of deep breaths in and then out. As we move into our time of centering, breathe in, out. Knowing we need to take some quiet time every day. I'm going to start our quiet time this time by singing myself And then we're going to weave our prayer with singing together the Lone Wild Bird. I'll start first. The lone wild bird in lofty flight is still with thee, nor leaves thy sight. And
Join me in a spirit of prayer. May love itself find a place in our hearts. May it rest in each of us, helping us honor the holy in the people around us, driving us to act when hate would destroy. Great Spirit, come and rest in us.
Please join me. The lone wild bird in lofty flight is still with thee, nor leaves thy sight, and I am thine, I rest in thee, great Spirit.
Mystery, that force which sustains life, ever moving, ever evolving, rest in us. May we grow in comfort with not knowing. May we come to trust that life itself will hold us as it has held our ancestors, that we'll make it through even the most difficult of times, even when we cannot prove our faith with an equation. Great Spirit, come and rest in us.
Great Spirit, come and rest in us. Great Spirit, come and rest in us.
One day, each of us will be counted among the host of people who have become one with the Great Spirit. In the day of our final rest, may we be able to say that we were hosts to love. May it be a healing duality for us, that life means a great deal and that it does not last forever. Until we rest in you, Great Spirit, may you rest in us and guide us. Amen.
Great Spirit, come
Thank you, Bell Choir, with special guest ringer, Reverend Kelly. There's half of this preaching gig that is really troublesome. Now, the other half is pretty great, as is evidenced by the rise of TED Talks. People love to hear other people opine about important things, especially when they are confirming our own biases or stoking our egos about good things we're already doing. That's the comforting the afflicted part of the preacher's job, also known as preaching to the choir. And it's pretty sweet. Feels good for everybody involved. The other part, the afflicting the comfortable half, can get a little dicier. People can get grouchy about that part of it. We don't like to be poked and prodded to do something new. A lot of us, especially us firstborn children who carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, want to have thought of every great idea first. We don't always take so well to criticism, even if it's constructive. Don't tell us we need to change. Well, today I come to afflict us. All of us, myself included. Because as I'm sure you've noticed, everything isn't great right now. It's tempting maybe to feel overwhelmed and decide there's nothing we can do. But in anxious times like these, I think some of the most important work we can do is to get really clear about where we stand, about our values, and then make sure our actions are matching our values. It's the journey of a lifetime. So with eyes wide open, we turn to our monthly theme of democracy and how what we eat affects our shared future. Waves of migrants are showing up at our southern border seeking refuge. This is not news to us. Met with racist and xenophobic rhetoric and increasingly deadly immigration policies meant to force folks back into the countries they're fleeing. We religious liberals work hard to shelter those who make it to us, and that's good and important work, but a person might begin to wonder, what's causing these waves in the first place? Well, that's a complicated question, and there are a lot of answers to it, but one of the biggest culprits is climate change. As fresh water becomes more scarce in massive parts of the world and crops become harder to grow, deadly conflicts over shortages are facing people to move away from the places their families have lived for generations. This is a time of great upheaval and change, especially for the most vulnerable people in the world. An article from the National Resources Defense Council reads this way. In the European Union, where the stresses and strains associated with processing large numbers of migrants have already reached crisis proportions, experts predict that the annual stream of those seeking safety within its borders will triple by the end of the century due to climate-related migration. And in 2018, a World Bank Group report estimates that the impacts of climate change in 3 of the world's most densely populated developing regions, Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Latin America, could result in the displacement and internal migration of more than 140 million people before 2050. That many people on the move, they conclude, could easily lead to massive political and economic strife and significantly stall development in those regions, end quote. Maybe it's not obvious, but what we eat is making this problem worse. Just in the United States, we could feed 800 million human beings with the grain eaten by animals that we're raising for consumption. According to a Cornell University professor of ecology, David Pimentel, the 7 billion livestock animals in the U.S. consume 5 times as much grain as is consumed directly by the entire American population. Pimentel wrote, animal protein production requires more than 8 times as much fossil fuel energy than production of plant protein. while yielding animal protein that's only marginally more nutritious than the comparable amount of plant protein. As well, he says, grain-fed beef production takes 100,000 liters of water for every kilogram of food. In comparison, soybean production uses 2,000 liters of water. Rice uses 1,900, wheat uses 900, and potatoes use 500 liters of water. That's to say nothing of the fossil fuels used to raise and transport animals for slaughter. One more quote from the Cornell professor. More than half the U.S. grain and nearly 40% of world grain is being fed to livestock rather than being consumed directly by humans. Although grain production is increasing in total, the per capita supply of grain has been decreasing for more than a decade. Clearly, there's reason for concern in the future. How many of us watched the videos of the fires in the Amazon? You saw them on the news maybe, or read about them in the paper. People around the world are watching as what some call the lungs of the earth are on fire. Most of those fires were not accidental. They were set by ranchers and loggers to create more pasture land, to raise animals for meat. The nation of Brazil, which makes many millions of dollars from its beef exports, is unlikely to act unless it's pressured to do so. It's getting pressure from Finland and Ireland, a few other places, but not enough. As CNN reported in an online story about the fires, quote, "For those wondering how they could help save the rainforest, known as the lungs of the earth, for producing about 20% of the world's oxygen, the answer may be simple: eat less meat," end quote. So it's pretty clear. We're far too distant from the sources of our food, including beef that comes from Brazil and other places. We're too reliant on systems that exploit the resources of poor countries to feed the appetites of the wealthy. A meat-heavy diet is killing the planet, is hurting the poorest parts of the world, uprooting millions of our vulnerable siblings around the globe, and putting us all in mortal danger. I wish we could fix climate change with a few little tweaks. A light bulb here, a canvas bag there, and voila, everything is better. And don't get me wrong, those things are important, and I hope we're all working on them. But we're beginning to see that really turning things around is going to require more discomfort than our shared struggle to remember to take bags into the store. And not only do I wish it could be fixed by a few little tweaks, but I wish we could just turn it over to our elected officials. That you laughed makes me sad a little bit. But we can't wait for them. Not just because we don't have time to wait for them, but because our actions determine what they do. Yes, we need to keep the pressure on our elected leaders to make big systemic changes that will turn climate change around. But my guess is they won't do it on their own. As long as we keep consuming what we're being offered, as long as we're unconscious about our diet, as long as companies make billions of dollars off of that consumption, not much is likely to change. But we can do something about it. We can move toward more plant-based diets, and in so doing, make it more likely that our democracy will continue to thrive, and more likely that our most vulnerable neighbors will have a shot at lives of relative peace and health. Lest you think I'm preaching at you, I want to tell you about my first efforts at this. I decided a few years ago I would go vegetarian, so I just did it. But I didn't deal with my lack of thinking about what I was still eating. So I just ate more of what I was eating that wasn't meat. I ate a lot of pasta, vegetarian. Doritos, vegetarian. Oreos are vegan and vegetarian. I ate cheeses of various kinds. I mean, it felt like heaven a little bit. All of these things were vegetarian. Thank heaven that Heather's job at the time offered an annual checkup that included a blood count check. my cholesterol skyrocketed. I was pre-diabetic. I ran straight back into the arms of pork sausage and pork rinds and baked chicken. And it was glad to receive me back. Well, having learned from that big mistake, going vegan has actually been a lot easier, and I'm not dying from it. I'm healthier because I'm no longer just picking up and eating the things that I had been unconsciously eating for so long. Friends, I know how hard it is to make a big change like that. I grew up eating meat at all 3 meals and often as a snack, and that's not an exaggeration. Food is cultural. We've shared our stories around meals for as long as human beings have spoken. It's sort of scary in a way to think about changing our diets. But it's fun too. There are so many resources out there. I just bought this cookbook I sold a vegan junk food diet at the auction. I just bought this vegan junk food cookbook that has deep fried this and breaded that, and lots of resources if that's the path you want to go down every once in a while. So many plant-based recipes, if you can get past the stories about how the authors of the recipes based them on some childhood experience that you just have to read before you try the recipe. Scroll down, the recipes are there. This time of enormous change really is born of terrible things, but there's a way of looking at it that can make it a challenge that's exciting. And if this pork and beef fed country boy from the hills of southern Indiana can make big changes, if you want to do it, you can do it too. I'm not saying that everyone needs to become vegan. I'm not saying everybody doesn't either. But you know what's possible for you. You know what seems realistic and achievable. And you know what your values are calling you to do. What I am saying is that the time for being unconscious about what we eat has to be over. It's estimated that our diets account for about 20% of all greenhouse gases. We can no longer sleepwalk to the supper table. Maybe you feel cynical about the impact it can make. Who could blame you? Climate change is dire, and a lot of its consequences are already here and have been for a while. But in his essay, Why Bother, which I really like, Michael, I don't know how to say his last name. Is it Pollan? Pollan. Paul, see, y'all are saying it different ways too. Okay. Michael P. says that although he understands the doubt that we experience, folks ought to plant a garden anyway. His thing's plant a garden, but I think what he says applies to whatever changes we make. I'll just read you a paragraph from his essay. Why bother to plant a garden? Well, at least in this one corner of your yard and life, you will have begun to heal the split between what you think and what you do, to commingle your identities as consumer and producer and citizen. Chances are your garden will re-engage you with your neighbors, for you'll have produce to give away and the need to borrow their tools. You will have reduced the power of the cheap energy mind by personally overcoming its most debilitating weakness, its helplessness, and the fact that it can't do much of anything that doesn't involve division or subtraction. The garden's season-long transit from seed to ripe fruit, will you get a load of that zucchini, suggests that the operations of addition and multiplication still obtain, that the abundance of nature is not exhausted. The single greatest lesson the garden teaches is that our relationship to the planet need not be zero-sum, and that as long as the sun still shines and people can still plan and plant, think and do, we can, if we bother to try, find ways to provide for ourselves without diminishing the world. End quote. Now you are, as always, free to get mad at me for telling you these things. I don't really think many of you will, but my email is open and I check it most weekdays. But in truth, as people who like to deal with truth and who believe that facts still matter, I think this is a room full of people who want to be part of the solution. So here's my challenge. Go beyond reading about climate change and how dire it could be for our democracy. Move past only expecting our elected leaders to solve this problem for all of us. Think about what agency you have. Think about what your values are and how you can take one step toward making your actions match up a little more closely. Isn't that the project of a meaningful life anyway? To look at our values and to try to enact them day by day, always imperfectly, but maybe a little better and a little better. Take careful note of what you're eating and eliminate some or all of the animal products. Do a little better and a little better and a little better. Or take the Nestea plunge and go completely plant-based if that's more your style. You may not save the world, but as the ancient rabbi said, we don't have to solve every problem, but neither are we free to ignore the problems in the world. Blessings, friends, on your unique journey to make the world a little better place for all of us animals who live here. Amen.
Lots of great things to think about. Thank you, Andy. As I was driving in today, I realized, counting today, I have 6 more Sundays with you all. Now 5. But I have an invitation. If you've always wanted to sing in my choir and you've never had the chance, 2 weeks from today, November 3rd, come early, 9:15. And I'm going to teach whoever comes in that next hour the music for the day. So my goal is that there'll be more choir than there will be congregation. And a special invitation to kids or kids who used to be in my children's choir to join me November 3rd. We're going to have a Y'all Come choir. Should be really fun. Our closing song is based on words of St. Francis. Animals, plants, there's holiness in all of creation. Sometimes we forget about this song and only sing it at Easter, but it's a great song with great words, words from the 12th century and a tune from the 1600s. Please rise in body or spirit, number 203, where the words will be up here.
Shining moon with silver gold.
Please join me in reciting the words that we use to extinguish our chalice. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again.
Okay, so special invitation to you right here in about 15 minutes or so. We're going to have a workshop on sustainable eating. This is part one of a two-part workshop, but either if you can just come for one, that's okay. Just a sentence or two about it. You won't be asked to eat in any particular way or to eat any particular foods or not eat any particular foods. You will learn strategies based on the science of behavior change to help you reach and maintain your goals. So if you're trying or if you're interested in moving to a more plant-based diet, hear from an expert here, spend some time talking to each other, and give yourself a real boost on that journey. Well, now may life bless you and keep you. May the Spirit make its face to shine on you and be gracious unto you. May the universe pour out the fullness of its blessings on you and bring you peace. Go in peace, dear friends. Amen.